Hey everybody! In this demo I'm going to show you how to create a processing application using Spring Cloud Stream and Spring Cloud Dataflow. What I'm going to show you today is the loan processor. So the loan processor takes those bank loans and separates them into the ones that the bank should approve and the ones that the bank should decline. So here's my code for the loan processor. Again, I'm using Spring Boot. In this case, it's version 2.3.1. I'm also using Spring Cloud Stream, so I have that as a dependency. I have Actuator and Web so that Kubernetes can use the liveness and readiness probes that are built into that. And I also have a setting down here that allows me to create a Docker image of this application. I'm using just a regular Spring Cloud Stream. I particularly like the way that I can define inputs and outputs, so that's what I've done here in this interface, which I'm calling the loan processor. This defines what I think the input and the output should be called. So I can then use those in the rest of the application just as static strings. So the loan processor itself, again, is pretty easy to understand. What we have here is a loan processor. So as a loan comes in from that inward channel, then it's processed based on its max amount. If that max amount is too high, so the amount applied for is too high, then the loan is declined and it's sent to the declined output. This is a messaging output. Similarly, if the application is approved, then it goes to the approved output. Now, where do they end up? Well, that's set in the application properties. So here in my application properties, I have the input and the approved and declined things that you saw in the loan processor interface earlier. Here they are: input, approved, declined. And I'm saying that in the messaging infrastructure, these are the names that you should use for the various exchanges that are required for those messages either to be received from or to be sent to. Now, deploying this to Dataflow, let's first have a look at very quickly at the registering the applications. So if I do register the app, there we go, have a look at that shell script. You can see that I'm using Spring Cloud Dataflow's command line interface, but I'm using a switch to say, here's my command file, and then I have all the commands in individual text files, which means that I can use several of them in one go. So let's do that now. So that's done, that's all my applications registered. Now I can use them to build a stream. And again, I have a script for that. So let's have a quick look at that script. Here we are. So again, I'm using the Dataflow UI with this CLI with the same switch. Let's take a quick look at the loan processing stream text here. So what you'll see is I'm using the stream create command from the CLI. I'm giving the stream a name and I have a definition here. Now this definition looks slightly different if you've been following the other videos. That's because I'm using this double pipe symbol between the pieces. This is telling Dataflow to deploy these pieces in parallel. I'm then going to also tell Dataflow at deploy time how to hook them together. So I have the loan source and the loan processor, which you'll remember from the diagram earlier. And then I have two logs, one for approved and one for declined. Now let's take a look at the deployment script as well. So in the deployment script, it looks very, very easy because it's very short. And that's true, it's deploying the loan processing stream for me, but I am using a properties file. The properties file is this one here. Let me show you those properties. Previously, you've seen me set some of those in the UI. But here I have, first of all, for the loan source, I have my Kubernetes settings, which tells it to use an image pull policy of always and an entry point style of shell. And I also have some settings that help Dataflow to configure the rest of the flow. So, for example, the loan source has an output destination of loans, and the loan processor has an input destination of loans. So do you see, I'm telling Dataflow that these two exchanges are linked to each other. These two applications should use that exchange to communicate. Same with the outputs. So the approved and declined outputs are going to specifically named exchanges. So I just run that script now. And in the background, Dataflow will take care of deploying all of those components onto Kubernetes for me, which I can see going on in the background here. Let's take a look at the log for the loan processor. So there we go, we can see the loans are being generated now and processed by the processing component. And then if we take a look at the stream of just the approved loans, let's look at the log there, and there we go. Every time a loan is approved, it ends up in this log. Similarly with the declined, again, every declined loan ends up in this log. And that's it. All the source code is available at the bottom of the screen.